There are many things in this life that have brought us up, whether it be films, television shows, cartoons, video games, books, you name it. Everyone has had a favorite childhood memory of pieces of media in and around Hollywood, television, etc. And in this multi-part series, I aim to talk about the films, television, and other forms of media that have shaped me up into positive ways, in an effort to create more of a positive outlook on my channel. So, come with me as I explore the very films and other media that shaped the way I am today. Welcome on back to Spearman Studios, and today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest franchises of all time, Pokemon. What can really be said about Pokemon? It's everywhere. Ever since 1995 in Japan, the craze associated with the franchise has lasted for over 20 years. And in those 20 years, a whole generation was brought up with the common phrase, "I want to be the very best," like no one ever was. And it's with that classic theme that brought up a generation of people willing to go the distance in competition and in daily life. As for myself, my journey with the franchise has been both similar and different to other people. My first real experience with the franchise was with the card game, actually. I had bought some Pokemon cards, and in middle school we were playing Pokemon. Granted, we didn't know the rules. And so we would just place a Pokemon down and just kind of do a war thing where you use your toughest attack on the Pokemon and you try to beat each other down until you run out of cards. Granted, that's not how you play it today, because I know how to play it now. But for the first part of my life, I just didn't know how to play. The first card I bought was a Seedot, which was kind of funny, because that little seed grew into something as big as a Craze for me. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time, aside from, Harry Potter and the Marvel Universe and DC, but those are all different things. But for me, Pokemon has been sort of my guilty pleasure of sorts. And for me, when it comes to the card game, the first time I ever really played in a tournament was in the City Championships in 2009 in Kennewick, Washington. I was not really the most proficient, so we had to buy a deck, and I had to learn how to play, and I ended up being in 14th place. I remember. Again, you don't expect a new guy to beat people that have already established decks of cards and whatnot. And for me personally, when it came to being part of the Pokemon franchise, I had wanted to do something else, something extracurricular, because most people had things that were extracurricular, right? Some people had sports, some people had clubs. I was a Boy Scout at the time, but there wasn't much there. I mean, I could earn badges, I could, do stuff, and granted, I ended up completing that whole thing with an Eagle Scout accommodation and, the 3 palms. But I wanted to do something else, and this was after my dad's death, and I needed something else other than movies and whatnot to keep me, having a little bit of variety. And so I played Pokemon, the card game, and for me, Pokemon, the card game, actually was kind of a gateway to Magic the Gathering, which I play semi-regularly. I'm not necessarily the most proficient. I don't spend a lot of money on that. But it is kind of a gateway to a lot of card games, I feel, as well as video games too. People don't realize that this actually started out as a video game franchise with Pokemon Red and Blue back in 1995 in Japan, and it was just one of those franchises that people got into. It's their first sort of video game that they get into. It's kind of like with Mario or Banjo-Kazooie or anything like that. Most people start off with games, like baby games, or even entertaining games, and that was one of my first games. And so, granted, at the end of that day with the tournament, I had walked away with an Empoleon deck. I think it was around the time when Diamond and Pearl was a big thing. So, there's that. And one day I was looking around at our town's local bookstore. And for me, when it came to Pokemon media, the only thing I knew at the time were both the games and the cards. But I had been looking around at our local book fair, which is a bunch of books that get donated to the library, books and movies and CDs and whatnot, and they're put on sale in this sort of yard sale type environment at the convention center. And lo and behold, I find these two tapes. Now, the reason why they're in books is that, it's a library, of course, but, these tapes right here are some of the weirdest tapes I've ever seen. This right here is what is called the Pokemon, what was it? The Collector's Guide to the Galaxy's Pokemon Edition or something like that. It's, the Ultimate Pokemon Trading and Training Strategies. This is tape number 2. It was done in 1999, at the height of the craze in America, done by Brentwood Home Video. And if you want to take a look at what these videos are, I'll link in the description a video by Chad Tronic, because he did a video on it. But what I remember seeing most from this videotape set is that it's very cheesy, it's very corny. You have a guy that has frosted tips on his hair, going around to different people and asking them questions. It's like, oh, what's this? What's a card game? What is this? And he does weird interviews, like an interview with a Furby. There's even a point in the first tape where he talks to Ernie Hudson and his son, which is kind of hilarious because I met them in real life and they're actually really cool people. And it was pretty cool. I wonder if Ernie Hudson remembers that. Next time I see him, I'll ask him about it. And so the second pair of tapes that I found was this, the Advanced Pokemon Guide. What I remember, I've only seen this tape set once, but what I remember is that it's more of an advanced strategies. This is kind of like a part 2 to the first set of tapes. And I just remember this set of tapes just being like, oh yeah, this is advanced strategy, so you can poison him and then take some knockout damage, blah, blah, blah. And again, this was when the card game was big in America. 1998 was when the card game came to America. And, not a lot of people really do strategies. And, this person on the front, they talk about all the different stuff. You got, the secrets of evolution, the truth about Charizard, learn the keys to a successful theme deck, and then the main guy that teaches it is a guy named Z-Torm or Storm. I have no idea how to really pronounce that, but it's such a weird set of tapes that I still have it. They still work too. Both of these sets of tapes still work. And it's so funny. And from there, my obsession really became bigger when I started watching the anime. I started watching the anime around when I was, 12. And most of the stuff I remember, is from the Indigo League. Most people's memories are from the Indigo League, where Ash first meets Pikachu in the I Choose You tape. In fact, hold on, let me go grab the actual anime VHS tapes.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's Clefairy!
Ugh, Jesus Christ. These are all the VHS tapes I've owned. Most of these are from the original series, but, you get stuff like Pokemon Advanced here, and you get, hold on a second. I got so much shit. Pikachu's Winter Vacation 2. I remember this one. I kind of still enjoy watching this one around Christmas time. I might do a video on this one around Christmas again, but I just remember watching this VHS tape. This one was fun. You get Pikachu Party. This is the one where, Pikachu, contemplates moving away from Ash and being part of this huge Pikachu tribe, which brings a tear to my eye every time I see it. You got stuff like The Great Race, you got Picture Perfect, which, this is is one with Terry, I think, right? The guy that takes pictures. Let's see, Into the Arena. I've actually never seen this one, to be honest. I'm gonna take a look at it later. A Room with a View, which I think is the first few episodes of Advanced. You got Wake Up Snorlax, which has some classic episodes. Thundershock, this one was great. You know, you get Lieutenant Surge, he has his Raichu, and Pikachu contemplates, evolving in the Raichu to beat Raichu. And it's a good set of episodes for the Lieutenant Surge's showdown, which is pretty good. You got Seaside Pikachu, got a thing on Charizard and Fashion Victims. Fashion Victims? This is what it's called, Fashion Victims. I also have the first tape, which is I Choose You Pikachu, but I can't seem to find it anywhere. But I do have it. Honestly, I really do have it. I remember the anime being very formulaic for the most part, mostly because of things like Team Rocket being a constant thing. But then that's just like me complaining that, every single episode of Power Rangers has a monster of the week, so why should I really be complaining? It just doesn't make sense. And from that jump, you get, the movies as well. The main three movies have never really been box office or critical darlings as I remember them. But we can generally agree that the first three are probably the best of the entire franchise. There's like 21 movies that are animated, with a 22nd on the way, which is fully CG animated, and it goes for more of a reboot of the Mewtwo Strikes Back, which is, the first movie. It doesn't really look that great to me, and then, obviously you have Detective Pikachu coming out this week. The most recent one I saw was Pokemon I Choose You, which honestly is not that bad. I have my thoughts on it, but I'll talk about that later. And this kind of springboards into my thoughts on the video games. I really enjoy the video games for the most part. Sure, each and every one of them has some formulaic elements, some gameplay elements that still are there to this day, except for, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, which we'll talk about. But I remember playing every single one. I remember playing Red. I remember playing Sun and Moon. Pretty much every time there was a new game, I would try to buy it. There were some odd games too. You get Pokemon Stadium, which was pretty fun. I didn't play every single Pokemon game, but for the most part, I played the mainline games a lot. And I think I just kind of stopped after a while. But going back to something like Let's Go Pikachu, which, is kind of a reskin of Pokemon Yellow, in a way. It's more of a 3D upscale of Pokemon Yellow, but I kind of like it a little bit more than Pokemon Yellow and a lot of the other games in the franchise, because when it comes to the catching mechanics, I can actually see the Pokemon, so it doesn't become tedious. And I had a lot more fun playing this game, surprisingly. Granted, it's still Pokemon Yellow. You're still playing the same game, but with some added elements of, different ways of catching the Pokemon. And the battle system's still there, but you can't really hold items. There's not a lot of status effects. So that's where the game kind of, deviates, and that's where some of the fandom doesn't like. Granted, I kind of like it. It's easily accessible, and it's majorly aimed towards, younger people who haven't been involved in the franchise. It's to get them involved in the franchise. That's the whole thing. Granted, the catching mechanic is a bit wonky because, it borrows from probably the worst Pokemon game, which was Pokemon Go. Not my favorite game of all time to play, considering the fact that, at first it was just so broken that you could barely play it. But yeah, Pokemon in of itself, has been a big thing, a big factor in my life. I really do enjoy it. Enjoy all of it. I played the games, I played the card games, I watched the anime, I watched the movies. In fact, I still have, tons of other stuff. I think I have most of the movies. I do have multiple copies of certain movies on VHS, which is so weird to me. But yeah, for me, Pokemon is that franchise that people really like. And to kind of close this whole thing off, I want to talk about Pokemon the movie I Choose You. Everyone has mixed thoughts on it, even I do. I just kind of, when I first saw it in a Fathom Events thing, I kind of thought that the film was more like a clip show than anything else. Like, yeah, sure, it has a full arc to the movie where Ash starts out and then he grows up and goes to the Indigo League, blah blah blah. We get all that, but most of it's a clip show. So like certain things like, you know, Butterfree being let go, Charizard being let go, like that stuff is all touched upon, and most of the plot is like that. But there's a certain part of it that really epitomizes why people love this franchise so much, and that's in Ash's dream sequence. If you haven't seen this movie, there's going to be spoilers. But if you have seen this movie, you're probably going to understand what I'm going to talk about. This dream sequence is honestly why people like it. So Ash goes to sleep due to something happening to him, and he dreams about him being in an alternate reality where there's no Pokemon. There's no fanciful creatures. He's living in a dull environment. He's going to a regular school. There's walls everywhere. There's just tons of restriction. And for me, both in the theater when I watched it and even now, I think on that scene as kind of a meta-analysis of why people like this franchise, is that with each entry, no matter how many entries this franchise has had, it allows people to really explore new areas. Just in the same way as like video games do, like every video game allows people to escape, but Pokemon allows people to not go, like, there's no borders. There's no restrictions. You can go anywhere in this franchise. You really can. There's tons of creatures. There's thousands, almost 1,000 types of creatures, 1,000 different Pokemon all over the Pokemon universe. There's no restriction in going places, you know? It's not like you have to, it's not like there's like borders or anything. Like, it's a franchise that allows people to explore. Not only, you know, the universe that they, you know, inhabit, but they also explore themselves. The types of Pokemon that they choose to train really tells people about the type of person they are, you know, and that's why, you know, people like this franchise. It's not necessarily fully about the creatures. It's not necessarily fully about the environments. It's everything. It's a culmination of everything, compounded with the environment we currently live in. And it makes us really appreciative of the wide world that, you know, this franchise has had. Granted, you know, this movie has, again, it has its fair share of problems, especially with, you know, some people had taken issue with the fact that Pikachu speaks English in this movie to Ash, and I have no idea why not, but yeah. And when it comes to Detective Pikachu this week, I'm a little bit nervous because in the past we've had, you know, video game adaptations that piss people off to the point where they try to rectify it by changing designs. I'm looking at you, Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And this is also based off of an anime as well. So you have a 2-for-1. And this could easily go down in flames because, again, we look at the past. You get things like Dragon Ball Evolution, which pretty much is terrible. Alita Battle Angel was fine, but not great. You know, video game adaptations especially, like Mortal Kombat Annihilation. You know, those films are just bad. The Super Mario Brothers movie is terrible. Even today, as I look back on it, it's just so stupid. And the only good video game movie out there is Wreck-It Ralph, the first one. And in terms of anime adaptations, there hasn't really been a single one that has stood up to scrutiny. So, who knows? I mean, the only true anime adaptations that have worked are the animated ones, for the most part. So it's going to be very interesting going into Detective Pikachu and seeing whether or not that works. And considering by the reactions by most critics and people who've already seen it, we could be in for a change-up in the curse the adaptation curse. So, who knows? So, until next time, I'll see you around the corner, and I'll see you next time at the movies. Peace.